With ImpacTalks, we celebrate the power of storytelling.
So our last speaker of this afternoon is Bailey Perkins. Yes, all right. I like that energy. Bailey's the Outreach and Legislative Director for the Oklahoma Policy Institute. OK Policy is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year, and it has quickly established itself as an authority on state fiscal issues. Bailey has played a big role in that. Bailey and the OK Policy team have helped shape debates on tax policy, leading to the first revenue increases in nearly 3 decades, protecting healthcare for the most vulnerable, and successfully defeating predatory lending expansion legislation. Bailey was also part of the 2014 to 16 cohort of the SPP State Policy Fellowship Program. And that gave Bailey, that gave Bailey the analytical tools she needed to be an effective advocate, uplift marginalized communities, and use her voice for the voiceless. Each day, Bailey strives to advance OK Policy's vision of broad-based prosperity by leading the organization's policy outreach strategies, representing the organization at the state capitol, and working with advocacy leaders across the state to advance the organization's mission. So please join me in welcoming Bailey to the stage as she shares Oklahoma's Miracle on 23rd Street.
This year, the Oklahoma Policy Institute celebrated its 10th year of providing credible analyses and shaping public policy debates in Oklahoma. What better way to celebrate than to have 30,000 of your closest friends storm the state capitol building chanting, 2, 4, 6, 8, we want you to fund the state. Wishful thinking, but that's not exactly how it went. You see, I'm a 5th-generation Oklahoman and a proud product of public education. The challenges Oklahoma has faced have existed for nearly 3 decades, or essentially the entire span of my life. This image is of teachers, state employees, and other fed-up Oklahomans who achieved the impossible task of pushing a conservative supermajority legislature to break its 30-year spell of raising revenue to fund important needs. That $500 million in new revenue moved Oklahoma teachers from the bottom of the barrel in pay, gave our state employees a small bump in pay, something that they hadn't seen in over a decade, and kept our state agencies from facing another round of cuts to their already bleeding budgets. Oklahoma was in desperate need of a miracle because our state was in really bad shape. I'm sure that you're wondering how this miracle on 23rd Street took place, and I can't wait to tell you. Our state needed a miracle for a number of reasons. With our population growing, but funding for services not matching up, we had shrinking budgets throughout the years, leading to the highest cuts in education and other important services. Teachers working multiple jobs just to make ends meet became the new normal in Oklahoma. Sadly, we're consistently last in everything good and first in everything bad. During the walkout, I ran into my 9th grade math teacher, Miss Randall. In our conversation, she mentioned that they still have the same textbooks that we used in 2004. When I was in 9th grade, we weren't allowed to take our textbooks home because there weren't enough copies for every student. So if we needed to take notes or get extra help, we had to do it right after class or come after school. So I can only imagine the challenges that exist 14 years later. To be clear, this wasn't completely out of our control. We knew that our state needed a miracle, but it wasn't an accident how we got here. There were 3 key situations that got us in these dire conditions. And if I'm being honest, Oklahomans played a key role in creating the first challenge that got us here, passing State Question 640. Let me break it down for you. In most states, you need a simple majority to raise revenue and make decisions. But in Oklahoma, you need a simple majority to cut taxes, but you need 75% of legislators in both chambers to vote yes on a revenue bill in order for it to pass, making this one of the highest supermajority thresholds in the nation. How did this happen? Because of a vote of the people. In '92, Oklahomans tied the hands of the legislature and made it difficult to raise funds in times of need. It sounded like a good idea at the time to make it hard to raise taxes until our volatile oil and gas industry began to tank, and we cut the income tax for high earners, losing about $1 billion in revenue over the course of a decade. That's $1 billion that could have made classroom sizes smaller, or added more mental health services to our state, or cut the long waiting list of Oklahomans waiting for disability services. Passing that state question hurt our ability to adapt, innovate, and invest in our time of need. Because we saw that path to destruction coming, the Oklahoma Policy Institute spent the past 10 years preaching the gospel of ending budget shortfalls by investing in core services. And surprisingly, it began to work. So while Oklahomans did play a role in creating the challenges that got us here, we also played an essential role in creating the miracle that we most desperately needed. In 2017, the Tax Cuts for Prosperity narrative began to change. In her State of the State address, Governor Mary Fallin talked about our revenue problems. And she said we need to bring new recurring revenues to our state in order to fix our budget problems. This was remarkable because just 6 years prior, the message was starkly different. So we were excited to hear our state leaders and lawmakers talking about ways to raise revenue in our state. So while we were winning the messaging narrative on taxation, there was still the problem of actually getting there. We spent 18 months in perpetual legislative sessions trying to figure out ways to raise revenue and get around our challenges created by State Question 640. With all of these different ideas floating around and the legislature voting on numerous tax packages, we had failed revenue plan after failed revenue plan after failed revenue plan. In each one of those revenue plans, teachers were promised a pay raise. And when they failed, teachers felt let down. So they threatened to walk out, and they made good on their promise. Educators showed up to the Capitol and they showed out. They filled the rotundas, they filled the hallways, they filled the gallery. Anywhere you could have possibly been at the Capitol, there was an educator or an education supporter. They literally filled the Capitol to capacity, to the point where there was a one in, one out situation in the building. But they were waiting, willing, and ready to talk to their lawmakers about ways to fix our budget problems for their kids and for their classrooms. One of the most powerful demonstrations during the teacher walkout was educators from the state's second largest school district who, with their district superintendent, marched from Tulsa, Oklahoma, all the way down to the state capitol in Oklahoma City. This was remarkable because it was a 100-mile march to raise awareness, yes, and to draw attention to the urgency that we need to fix our budget problems now for our schools. And each day during the teacher walkout, the Oklahoma Policy Institute was there in the building providing information and resources. And thanks to the organizing and the infrastructure of education organizations and education advocates, our policy positions became the center of the debates and were the center of the conversations during the 18 months on how do we raise revenue. We had teachers coming up to our table left and right, asking us questions and getting into the weeds of complicated tax policy discussions like how do we end the capital gains tax exemption as a mechanism to put more dollars into the general revenue fund. And who would have imagined teachers and students in the band spelling capital gains in the bill numbers with their bodies on the Capitol lawn? It truly was a powerful thing to see. So while teachers and state employees and our community advocates didn't get everything they demanded, they accomplished noteworthy transformational change. They changed the political paradigm in our state for years to come. Educators, like my 9th grade math teacher, who had never been to the Capitol prior to the teacher walkout, have now found their voice. Educators showed up this election cycle, and many of them decided to run for office, with 25 educators winning their seats, making it the largest teacher caucus in the nation. And, yes, and they unseated anti-tax incumbents known as the Platform Caucus. Teachers Teachers united will never be divided. This video captures something we have in Oklahoma called the Oklahoma Standard. In times of natural disasters or distress, we come together, not as Democrats or Republicans, but as Oklahomans who care for one another. That's exactly what happened during the 2018 teacher walkout. Oklahomans came together to advocate for our state's needs, and lawmakers came together to pass this historic tax package. We hope that the civic lens of the Oklahoma Standard remains and continues our desire to show up, not just in times of natural disasters and distress, but in how we care for one another in policymaking. Take this as a reminder that miracles can happen when you refuse to accept what is and push for what can be. Thank you. Thank you.